Cuba's freedom will not be free, but it'll be worth it if they can rise up and do what it takes, which is incredibly easy for people like myself to say from the safety of the United States. I've never had to fight for my freedom. There's a very basic reason why freedom isn't free. The reason why freedom is not free is because there's always someone out there willing to make your life a living hell for their own personal gain. I think this very basic fact, which has been known since the time of the Greeks. I think it was Thucydides, the Greek historian back in like 400 BC, who wrote, "The strong do what they can and the weak suffer what they must." And that has been so irrefutable and consistent that it could almost be a law of physics. But the reason why it's not a law of physics is because it's not immutable or unstoppable. You can actually break free from the chains that bind you or bond you, however you would say that. The point is, it can be done. And in Cuba, it was done, at least in 1898. Thanks to men like my grandfather, who is in this book, the Dictionary of Cuba's Military History. Not my great-great-grandfather, my dad's dad, basically, who actually fought in what many Cubans would consider the true, real revolution of Cuba when they finally became free from Spain. And he passed away in 1946. So little did he know that like less than 20 years later, all that effort, getting lost out at sea twice, fighting alongside men like Maximo Gomez and meeting Jose Marti, who's this guy over here. He's kind of like the George Washington of Cuba, but not really. He never became president. He died in battle and died, sadly enough, almost in vain. He pretty much launched the Revolutionary War of Cuba, but he was so passionate about it that he rode out on a white horse and just got shot. Just got shot within, I think, the first couple minutes, which is horrific and it's tragic. But he was a great writer. He inspired Cubans at the time to rise up, and basically slaves as well. It was a truly collective effort that Cubans went through. And but even then, Cuba did not know much freedom after its Revolutionary War. It was less than, about maybe 50 years at best, 57, because from 1898 until 1902, they were still somewhat under the U.S.'s hand-holding, basically. And it wasn't until 1902 that they elected their very first president. But then from 1902 to 1959, when the Castro cancer took over. That's all the freedom they got to experience. And even then, it wasn't entirely free. There were quite a few dictators in between. There was Machado, there was Batista, there was a lot of corruption. And this is just why freedom is not free. There's always some ruthlessly determined psychopath and bully just willing to do whatever it takes for their own selfish gain. And they don't care who has to suffer. And the Castro regime has proven that for over half a century since they took power. And I think one of the real ironies of men like my grandfather, who fought against Spain to finally get their freedom, to have his grandson, who he would never meet, myself, end up being born in Spain because his son, my dad, as well as my mother, had to flee that communist dictatorship and had to be put into forced labor camps just to get out of there. And the real irony was that by the time my parents got to Spain, Spain was already under another dictatorship, which was Francisco Franco back in the 1970s when they got there. And but at least that dictatorship was more, it was livable. Like the conditions were much more livable because it wasn't a communist dictatorship. It was still a dictatorship. Many people died and suffered under it needlessly, but there was more breathing room. And it's scary when you think about how much of human history has been under the thumb of one tyranny after another. And it takes It takes Herculean efforts to break out of that, to break out of those bonds that hold people down and squander the potential of humanity. So this is why I can only hope that Cubans will rise up, which is incredibly easy to say for people like myself who didn't have to fight for that. I was never in the military. If push comes to shove, I may be careful what I say on video. I'd like to think that I'd have the mettle, METTLE, to fight for my freedom, to fight and die for the United States, no questions asked. That I would. Because if the United States goes down, there's going to be a whole new dark ages across the entire world. But would I for Cuba? Would I for the family that remains there? It's a lot to ask, especially of other Americans in this country. And America has already fought for Cuba's freedom, but of course there were strings attached back then, and there's strings attached now, and it's understandable. There has to be. Everything has a cost, especially freedom. And so to ask, especially like Americans from the Midwest, Americans from like Iowa and Wisconsin and other parts of like middle America to go fight and die for Cubans' freedoms. Cubans really need to stand up for that. They need to prove that they want more than just the electricity. They want their freedom. They want to live their full potential. And we'll be finding that out. Especially after today, when I'm recording this video, today was when it came out in the news that Congress is not going to continue approving the United States war against Iran, which I am also for, which I would, if the draft came about for that, I would fight for that because I feel like I'd be fighting for humanity. That's why I would also fight for the freedom of Cubans, because I see it as fighting for the freedom of fellow human beings. And not just out of charity, but out of the benefit for all of us. The world would be a much better place if there were no dictatorships. And I know that's incredibly idealistic. But think about the idealism of the amount of pseudo-intellectual, useful idiots that continue to make excuses for the Castro regime in Cuba, let alone the IRGC in Iran. Think about those idealistic morons that excuse the slaughter of thousands, tens of thousands of Iranians, as if nothing. As if who are we to go over there and impose our will? As if you're not even asking the question, who were the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps to kill their own people? And especially when they did it years ago over a damn hijab, over women, forcing women to wear a hijab. I hope this video makes sense. As of late, I've just been making my videos as single takes. I try to take my notes. I try to prepare for them. But in the end, try to speak as truthfully as possible, and especially about issues that really make or break civilization. The things that make life worth living if you get to live it at all, because that's the problem of living under dictatorships. You may not have the choice to live or not. Forget the freedom, just the ability to live, period. And I think that's what a lot of people tend to underestimate, tend to just be so dangerously naive about these regimes that they're willing to excuse while making Trump and the United States seem like the evil empire that it is not. With all that said, hope this video makes sense. If you like it, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, check out the links below for my original art and merchandise, and thanks for watching.